Okay, so I just want to make a bit of an update on this Kubrat Pulev kissing incident. I think it's going to become a big talking point for the wider Me Too issue. Not that I think she is a victim. I don't believe that she is, at least not to the extent that she's claiming, but rather become a bigger talking point in terms of how Me Too is going. In terms of it's, I believe it's got out of control. I believe it's become a witch hunt. I believe it's mm, excuse me, got a little bit of a mouth ulcer at the moment. Yeah, I think. Okay, well, let me just get to the basics of this case of some of the new things that have emerged. Firstly, let me just say to be very clear about this. No one refutes the kissing incident. That is clear cut. That was on footage. It's clear cut. He didn't ask her permission, and he was wrong. And I think he's wrong not to apologize for that. For that, but there are things that have emerged subsequently that really put her credibility into question. 3 hours after this, his entourage have released footage, and granted it is short footage, it's only like 8 seconds or something, but it shows her blatantly having a good time, sitting on someone's lap, man's lap. I don't know, that must be one of his minders or something. I don't know who the guy is, but she's having a great time, blatantly flirting with him like a pole dancer. She's all over him. Showing pretty much everything, you know, leaving nothing to the imagination. Now, is this really the behavior of someone who's been traumatized by a serious sexual assault, as she alleges? I find that very questionable. I appreciate different people act differently to things. She claims that she hung around because she wanted to interview other fighters and she was a professional reporter. Nothing very professional about that. Male or female, that's just not something that you would do. Um, so I think that is a very really puts her claims into question. And I hope if this does go to some sort of trial, that is used in the defense argument because I think it is very important. Incidentally, Kubrat Pulev's girlfriend has come out and defended him. Now, that's another interesting thing. If if he'd been guilty of sexual assault, now you might say she's just standing by her man, but that in itself is quite interesting because you would think that, well, you'd think, I think it's a little bit strange that she's okay with kissing another woman, friend or not. Some have said there's a cultural issue here in that Eastern Europe, Pulev, of course, is Bulgarian, has quite a macho culture, and that's an aspect of this. And it certainly doesn't have the sort of deeply ingrained male shaming feminism that is so dominant in the United States these days. So there may be a culture clash there, but I just don't believe this woman. And why? Because of the information that now is available. I'm not one of these people that always says that always automatically defends a man. I do think there's circumstances that are quite clear cut whereby it's pretty obvious that a man's making a woman feel uncomfortable. For example, that I think I mentioned this in the previous video. The audio video that emerged supposedly of Harvey Weinstein really pushing a young actress. If that was Weinstein, well, whoever it was, the man in that audio is very clearly putting the woman in the audio in a very uncomfortable position. So I'm not one of these people that just says, "Oh, she's a liar." I am looking at this objectively. I'm looking at it from every angle. I'm trying to be fair to her because he shouldn't have done it. I mean, there's no question about that. And I think he's wrong not to show any sort of humility, not to show any sort of like acknowledgement that he shouldn't have done that. And I don't entirely believe his claim that they're great friends. However, what I think's happened here is I think this is a reporter that she thinks it's part and parcel of her job to go around and flirt with fighters. And then when it turns on her, like it's fine for her to flirt, but if they do it back and she maybe is taken off guard and she's embarrassed, I think she wants revenge. I think she wants money. And this lawyer that she's hired apparently is a real battle axe. So she will get a lot of money because in America, everything's about money. I just don't think she is showing. I mean, is this really someone who's sexually traumatized? You wouldn't be behaving like that. I really don't think that. And apparently, this has already unfortunately become a battle of the sexes to some extent because the female Olympian boxer Clarissa Shields has said that fans should be ashamed of the reaction to this. But I think she's being short sighted. She's only looking at it as another woman, so she's biased. She's not looking at it as the circumstances around this. Why is it that this person, Jennifer Sushi, Jennifer Ravallo, why is it that she hung around for so long afterwards? Why did she not go straight to the police? I mean, if she's saying that it was to interview other boxers, then that could mean, oh, she's being so professional that she still wants to get the job done. But this footage, and granted it is short footage, but that was 3 hours later. And there's other photographs where she's, got her arms completely around Kubrat Pulev. So maybe what he said about them being good friends is true. She was embarrassed and now she's just distorting the whole thing. I don't trust her for a second. And it's not because he's a man, it's because I'm looking at the facts that are available. If he put it this way, if he'd done what he done, and there's no question about that, and then she hadn't attended the after party, and then everything transpired, I'd be willing to think, okay, well, maybe there is something in this. Maybe Pulev does have serious questions to answer. But the fact that she's went to this after party, I think that is very, very important in terms of her character. And it isn't just that she went to the after party. I mean, look at it for goodness sake. She's acting like a pole dancer. I mean, only the most blinded feminists would not be able to see that for what it is. And feminists don't care because the way feminists view these things is a woman is always right. That's it. Oh, she's a woman, so she must be telling the truth. And I mentioned Me Too. I think the background here is that Me Too has become basically a witch hunt. It's become a metaphorical lynch mob because what we're seeing is prominent man after prominent man absolutely being crucified by feminist driven media without the facts even being presented. This hasn't even went to trial, and already, I mean, that's the nature of the internet, but already feminist writers are crucifying him. They want his blood without looking at all the facts. And a quick point about how she's dressed. I know that feminists get really worked up about this. They say, oh, you can never blame a woman for how she's dressed. I agree with that to an extent, insofar as I think men should have self control. I don't think Pulev should have done what he done. I don't think he should have kissed her without permission. There's no question about that. But I also believe that if you're going to dress like a pole dancer, showing 70% of your breasts, going right up to a boxer, blatantly flirting in your interview style, you know, that is significant. And I think it is significant in determining the circumstances of a case. Um, I've seen this thing whereby I came across an exhibition. It was like some sort of art thing where it showed all these different types of dresses, and it said all these women were victims of sexual assault to counter the point that it's because it's of the way they dress. Well, I'm not one of these people that says, "Oh, she deserves it because of the way she dresses," but I do take a different point of view from those who say it's totally irrelevant. And no, I don't expect her to dress like a nun. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying if you're going to, well, take for example, there's another sports journalist, Michelle Joy Phelps. I'll be interested to see what her perspective is on this. I think she'll be an interesting person to look at because she has a very good rapport with fighters. I've seen this over the years, and unlike this non-entity, she's well established. She's well known. She has lots of videos. Everyone in the boxing world knows who she is because I think she's actually a pretty good reporter. In terms of the fact she's fair to the fighters, she focuses on the sport. but she is an attractive woman, and yes, she'll flirt sometimes. I'll be interested to know what her perspective is. Now, if she comes out and defends this reporter, then my view of Michelle Joy Phelps will go down. If she is more open minded and says, well, look, we need to look at all the information here, then fair play to her. But I will say to any women looking at this, don't look at it and back her just because she's a woman. Look at all the information that's available. I'm not backing Pulev because he's a man. I'm not even backing him. I'm just saying that we need to look at all the information that's available. And if this does go to trial, because the Me Too environment, that's what she'll be pushing for. I just think Me Too. Men need to be super careful these days, particularly if you're in the public eye, particularly like sportsmen, boxers, where there's always these after parties are often seedy. They're often, boxers need to be super careful. Kubrat Pulev's not the first fighter to be in this situation. And if there's any lesson from this, it's that men in general just need to be very careful. Frankly, I think there's women out there who are genuine victims, who really have been abused by men and they deserve justice. But then there's other women, and I think this so-called reporter fits into that, who frankly are toxic. They will do anything they can to get money out of a prominent man. And if that means distorting a situation, if that means putting on waterworks for the cameras, they will do it. I think you cannot underestimate the power of that sort of woman to manipulate. And they are the biggest nightmare of every man. One good thing about all of this is that any man with his head screwed on properly will stay well away from this individual, because her behavior just doesn't strike me as a professional reporter. It just doesn't strike me as someone who is being traumatized, as she put it. I mean, in the press conference, she was all, her speech, her body language, everything was all like you would expect from someone who's been sexually assaulted. But I really think the information that we know about this after party, and it's not like this was some sort of gang rape where they were holding her down. She was the one initiating it based on the information that is available. So I really think this puts the whole dynamic of this thing in a new light, and it'll be interesting to see what develops. I'd like to know what Michelle Joy Phelps thinks of this. Why? Because she's another female reporter. She has another perspective on this, or she has a woman's perspective on this, and it'd be interesting to see what path she takes. Not that she was there, so she couldn't exactly be called in as a witness or anything, but I just mean in terms of the I don't know. My gut feeling is Jennifer Suchet, Jennifer Rivallo cannot be trusted. Her whole demeanor, her whole behavior during this whole thing has just been suspicious to me. I mean, if she was really traumatized, why not go straight to the police? That's my question. That if she'd been grabbed by the buttocks and she'd been really traumatized by that, go to the police. Don't hang around and flirt with the very man who assaulted you, his entourage. That just seems, it's not even like she was with other people. It was his own entourage. If this guy is so menacing, if he's such a danger to women, why would she want to be anywhere near him? Surely that should ring alarm bells or, raise a red flag. I just don't trust her at all. And to those feminists who are out for his blood, I would say just be objective. Just look at this from every angle.